These are the resonant chords, the chords that Messiaen calls the resonance chord. They are made up of the first dozen um, notes in the overtone series, then passed through the filter of the mode, Messiaen's modes. So they don't align exactly to the overtone series. Some of the pitches are adjusted so that they are pitches within that modal set. Talk all about that in the earlier video. Today I want to dig into what Messiaen refers to as superior and inferior, um, superior and inferior resonance. And I'll be honest, right up off the bat here, this is a concept that I'm not entirely clear on. And I don't think it's just because I haven't studied it enough. I think it's because it's one of these ideas that Messiaen kind of throws out there in the book, chapter 14 of Techniques of My Musical Language, and then just kind of moves on. But implied by this idea is one of the bedrock techniques that we can infer from the book. So this is something that I'm starting to really think about now, as I'm 2/3 of the way through Techniques of My Musical Language, chapter 14. The techniques that Messiaen describes are characteristic gestures of melody, rhythm, harmony, non-retrogradable rhythm in the horizontal sphere, horizontal axis rather, modes of limited transposition harmonically and melodically in the vertical. Intersection of those creates this effect of stasis. These are superficial definitions of technique, and underlying them are some a priori principles that I think are very important to Messiaen. And one of them is this idea of filtering, taking either an original or an initial pivot point or inspiration, and then running it up against these surface techniques. But the technique is the filter. The technique isn't the non-retrogradable rhythm or the mode of limited transposition. The technique is the filtering technique. And I think in this chapter, before we get into the inferior and superior idea, this chapter contains a very famous paragraph. I don't know if famous is the right word, but it's quoted a lot when we talk about Messiaen and his synesthesia, because he's very explicit in this paragraph about the colors associated with particular chords and particular harmonies. But he does more than that. Here, so this is section 7 of chapter 14 of Techniques of My Musical Language. It's page 73 in the version that I have. He says, Mon secret désir de somptuosité féerique dans l'harmonie m'a poussé vers ces épées de feu, ces brusques étoiles, ces coulées de lave bleu-orange, ces planètes de turquoise. So, mon secret desire, my hidden desire, my earnest desire, my core desire for the magic of féerique, the sumptuosity, the richness, the enchantment of the sort of fairy magic in the harmony, has pushed me towards these swords of fire, these fireworks, épées de feu, ces brusques étoiles, these brusque stars, these exploding stars, these noisy stars, ces coulées de lave bleu-orange, blue-orange, of course, planète de turquoise, turquoise planets, violet, arborescence cheveleuse, ces tournements de son et couleurs enfouies d'arc-en-ciel, some rainbow colors twisting and turning, dont j'ai parlé avec amour dans la préface de mon quatuor pour la fin de temps. which he's written about in the preface to Quartet for the End of Time, which he does. Remember, these two are contemporary, right? The Quartet for the End of Time had been written before he wrote these techniques, but they're within the same 5-year period, and they're definitely in the same point in his career, where these are the workings out of the ideas that drive his composition throughout his life. But this is the particular alignment. This techniques, the quartet, the Avant-Garde, these are pieces that really fit together well. Un tel boulonnement d'accords doit nécessairement être filtré. Such a bubbling bouillonnement, a bubbling of chords. His language is so childish in a way when he talks about the harmony. Doit nécessairement être filtré. Necessarily must be filtered. And this is where I want to get to. C'est l'instinct sacré de l'harmonie naturelle et véritable qui seul s'en peut charger. This sacred, instinctual, natural harmony. It has to be filtered. And so we end up with the modes, which are the idiosyncratic filtering of the natural resonance. And I think when he uses harmony, natural harmony, natural resonance in this context here, he's not talking about the overtone series. He's talking about the sound of the ocean, white noise of wind in a storm, the overlapping of these noise blocks, sort of the orchestration of nature. Birdsong is part of it, for sure, but the sound of boulders rolling down a mountain in a storm, with the ever-changing, ceaselessly changing sound of rain on that boulder. These are the kinds of sonic gestures that he's thinking about. And sure, I think later in his career, in pieces like Canyon des Etoiles, where he has more deliberately evocative sound-producing instruments, he's more explicit. Here, that's what he's hearing, I think, and then he filters them through the pitches of the modes. And I think that this concept of the modes as a personal, idiosyncratic, compositional filter on the phenomenon of the earth, the phenomenon, the phenomenon, the phenomenology of the earth is filtered in his harmony. So that's context. Getting back in the swing of things. It's been a while. Since I put a video up, and there's a reason for that, and it's not time. I have a schedule that allows me to put out one of these every week, certainly every 2 weeks. But the concepts that he's talking about here baffle me. And I don't know that they baffle me because I haven't studied it enough. I think they baffle me because he's not very clear. But I don't want to sound like an idiot. Who wants to sound like an idiot? So I'm probably going to sound like an idiot when I talk about superior and inferior resonance. And if you know more about it, if you've done reading where he talks about this, some of those interviews, he talks quite technically sometimes, let me know. Or if you just know, just let me know. So I'm going to talk about them very briefly. Superior and inferior resonance. Play some of the examples that he's put here. And then I have a piece. And this is another reason why I just kept balking at publishing this. It's a study. It's not a well, this is the thing. It's just a study, and I thought it was going to be eight measure, messing around, just trying to figure out, what the harmony was and how it came together. Just a frippery. I thought I don't want it to be a fucking frippery. So then I got anxious because, of course, there's always that judgy bit, right? The judgy bit that says it's a piece of garbage. So we'll get to that, but that's coming, and that's really the reason why I haven't published this, because I've had to get my nerve up to play this for you. All right, resonance. Effet de résonance. Resonance effects. This is section 4 of chapter 14. Paul Dukas parlait souvent des effets de résonance. Paul Dukas, of course, professor at the conservatoire, taught Messiaen, a profound influence on him. Effet de pure fantaisie, assimilable par une très lointaine analogie au phénomène de la résonance naturelle. Purely fantastic effects, assimilated, understood, felt, with a long analogy to the phenomena of natural resonance. So maybe phenomena is the right word I was using earlier, the phenomena. On retrouvera des remarquables. One finds some remarkable instances in the dance ritual and also in Mana by André Jolivet. Then he gives an example of resonance superior. And as far as I can tell, and as we talk through the example here, superior resonance is really polymodality, polytonality, in the sense that, like, here's the example, right? Get the notes right. It's A, and then the chords up here, it's very slow, which is good because there's a beast of a so you have the sustain harmony. And then this kind of unrelated, polymodal, right? Like two different worlds moving by. I wonder if you can still hear that underlying resonance. It's quite lovely. So he describes it, right, with two sections. A, which is this lower chord down here, and then B and C, which are the left and right hands. B, which is the right hand, is mode 6, and C is in mode 2, and they're playing over each other. And he describes ces deux grappes d'accords font résonance supérieure de l'accord A. So the the overlapping modes in the right and left hand are the resonance of the underlying harmony. Very rich, very beautiful. And then this, so that's A, what he calls A, and then this is B. And that's it. That's the extent of his explanation about what he means by superior resonance. For inferior resonance, here's the example he gives. This note, this down here, is the resonant part of the equation. And I think the way that I think of this is that the inferior resonance is a filtered doubling of the original harmony. Now, I'm saying that entirely intuitively and without any basis in the text. But here's what we've got. And then the inferior resonance, which does always tend to be just two notes. And I'm going to say that it's usually either the seventh or the augmented fourth. Again, I'm only saying that because there's just nothing else to go by. But here, if I were to reduce that, here's my... the C and the B flat fit within the structure of the overall harmony in a way that the superior resonance didn't. The superior resonance is an entirely separate worldview. This feels modally, if I would just play it, it feels modally correct. And when I say that it's the filtered of the doubling, so what I mean by that is you've... And I'm just going to play it because I don't really know how to articulate it using my words. So those are actually some of the ideas that I then took into this study because I couldn't quite articulate. It. I particularly love that gesture, though, from the quartet. So there's kind of three ideas that, in retrospect, as I look back at the study, three ideas that I really drilled into. And the first is that alternation of the low harmony with that syncopated, like, you'll hear that a lot, and then in the middle section I embellish it a little bit too. In the left hand. So listen for the really punching on that, and then the sort of a bit of a build out of that idea. And then the second element, kind of related to that, is really that syncopated rhythm in the first place. Right? So you go. So I play a lot with that that syncopated idea throughout, the rhythmic element of it in particular. And then the third piece is third idea, that melodic, and that plays out in the middle section, whereas I really play around with the idea of three-note melodic ideas. So again, this is all in retrospect. At the time, I was just trying to muck around with something, and then quite by accident, and you'll hear this towards the end of the piece, the harmony changes. That open, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And let me know which one. I'll confess to having come across that because I made a cut and paste error, and or a copy paste. I was writing and I wrote it wrong. I think I wrote it in the wrong clef or something, and I thought, that sounds really great. Really great as like a closing evolution of the idea. So that's what I'm going to play now to kind of wrap things up here. I've called it Resonance Below, after chords from Messiaen. So there's a piecey bit to it, just sort of a piece, sort of a composedly bit. But think of it as a way of exploring some of those ideas that I'm not able to do in words. And again, if you know the words, if there's an article on JSTOR or somewhere that digs into what Messiaen meant by inferior and superior resonance, I couldn't find it. So if you have one, shoot me a link, and I'll do a follow-up. I'll read it and correct anything that I've gotten wrong here, or correct everything that I've gotten wrong here.